Larry Gomez was a simple man who lived in a small, quiet town surrounded by thick woods and long, empty roads. He wasn't the type to believe in ghosts or supernatural things. Most people who knew Larry would describe him as practical, calm, and grounded. But one night changed his life forever, and ever since then, he's never looked at the world the same way again. It all started on a late evening when Larry was driving home after visiting a friend. The sky was dark, and the moon was barely visible behind heavy clouds. The road he took was one he had driven hundreds of times before, a narrow stretch through a wooded area that most people avoided after dark. But Larry wasn't scared. He rolled down the windows a little, letting the cool night air brush against his face, thinking about nothing in particular. As he approached a bend in the road, he noticed something strange. A figure was standing at the edge of the forest, half hidden behind a tree. Larry slowed his car, squinting to see who it was. At first, he thought it might be a lost hiker or maybe a woman who had broken down on the road. But as his headlights illuminated the figure, a chill ran down his spine. The person, or rather, the thing, wasn't standing quite right. Her posture was unnatural, her head tilted slightly to one side as if she was studying him. Her skin looked pale, almost gray under the headlights, and her eyes, they didn't reflect the light the way normal eyes do. They seemed completely black, absorbing the light instead of shining it back. Larry felt an uneasy pull in his stomach. He slowed to a stop, unsure whether to ask if she needed help or to just drive away. The woman didn't move. She just stood there, staring. For a long, tense moment, they locked eyes. Larry described it later as feeling like she was looking through him, like she could see every thought running through his mind. Then, she smiled. It wasn't a normal smile. It was too wide, too deliberate. Her mouth stretched unnaturally far, revealing teeth that looked wrong. Too many of them. Too sharp. Larry panicked. He slammed on the gas and sped down the road, his heart racing so hard he thought it would burst. But when he looked in the rearview mirror, he saw something that made his blood run cold. She was gone from where she had been standing. But then, only seconds later, she appeared again, this time in the middle of the road, miles ahead. Larry couldn't understand how she had gotten there. He hit the brakes again, tires screeching as the car swerved. He stared at her, frozen. Her head tilted again, that same eerie smile still stretched across her face. He blinked once, and she was gone. Larry sat there for a few seconds, trying to calm down, convincing himself it was just his imagination or maybe a trick of the light. But then, out of nowhere, something slammed into the side of his car. The impact shook the whole vehicle, and he could hear what sounded like fingernails scraping against the metal. He pressed down on the accelerator and didn't stop until he reached the main highway. When he finally got home, he jumped out of his car, shaking. He looked at the side of the vehicle and saw deep, long scratches carved into the paint, like claw marks. His neighbor, who came outside after hearing the noise, saw them too. They weren't from an animal. They were too high, too deliberate. Larry barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face. That smile. Those black eyes. The next morning, he tried to convince himself it had been a nightmare. But when he went outside again, he noticed something new. The ground near his car had strange footprints, bare feet, but long and narrow, almost like human feet stretched unnaturally. Over the next few days, things only got worse. Larry started hearing noises at night, tapping on his windows, whispers outside his bedroom wall, and once, the sound of light footsteps circling his house. He called the police, but when they checked, there was nothing. No signs of forced entry, no footprints, nothing unusual. But Larry knew what he heard. One evening, as he sat on his porch trying to calm his nerves, he saw her again. She was standing across the street, motionless. Even though it was dark, he could see her face clearly. That same sickening grin, that same unnatural stillness. He ran inside and locked every door, every window. But the noises didn't stop. It was as if she was taunting him, waiting for the right moment. Larry's friends noticed he was changing. He looked tired, paranoid, and anxious. When he tried to explain what was happening, they didn't believe him. Some thought he was just under stress, others thought he might have been hallucinating. But Larry wasn't the only one who saw her. One night, his friend Carl decided to stay over to help him feel safer. Around midnight, they both heard soft knocking from the back door. Carl, thinking it might be a prank, went to check. When he looked out the small window, his face went pale. Standing just a few feet away was the same woman Larry had described. Long dark hair, pale gray skin, and those black, bottomless eyes. Carl backed away, shaking his head. They turned off all the lights and hid in the living room, whispering. For hours, they could hear movement outside, slow footsteps moving around the house. Then came the sound of scratching again, this time right under the living room window. When morning finally came, she was gone. But on the window pane, they found a set of handprints. The fingers were long, bony, and left behind a strange, oily residue that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. Larry called in a local paranormal group after that night. They set up cameras, motion sensors, and recording devices around his property. For the first 2 nights, nothing happened. But on the third night, something strange was captured on camera. Around 2:43 a.m., one of the cameras near the tree line showed a shadowy figure stepping out from behind a tree. It was tall, thin, and seemed to move in slow, jerky motions. The team described the figure's face as distorted, with large dark eyes that reflected no light. And then, it vanished. The camera kept rolling, but the next frame showed nothing. The temperature sensors recorded a sudden drop in heat around that time, nearly 15 degrees lower than normal. The investigators tried to find a logical explanation. Maybe it was a trick of the light, or maybe a bug on the camera lens. But none of those theories explained the scratches, the handprints, or the way the temperature shifted. They left, promising to return with more equipment, but many of them never came back. Some said they felt uneasy just being near that house. Larry eventually moved away. He sold the property for a fraction of its value and disappeared from public life for years. But even after he left, strange reports kept coming from that area. Local residents claimed to see a pale woman walking along the same road where Larry first encountered her. She would appear out of nowhere, always at night, and vanish just as quickly. Truck drivers have reported seeing her standing in the middle of the road, forcing them to slam on their brakes. When they get out to look, she's gone. A few have even said she appeared beside their vehicle windows for a split second, smiling that same impossible smile. To this day, no one knows who or what she is. Some believe she's a spirit, a restless soul of someone who died on that road long ago. Others think she's something else entirely, something not human at all. A being that feeds on fear, that mimics the form of a woman but lacks the humanity behind the eyes. There's a local legend that connects her to a disappearance from decades earlier. A woman named Eliza Morton vanished near that same stretch of road in the late 1950s. Her car was found abandoned, the driver's door open, but she was never seen again. Some believe whatever Larry saw that night might be what's left of Eliza, or whatever took her. Larry's story spread across paranormal forums and podcasts, with many people sharing eerily similar experiences. A few even claimed to have seen her face appear in mirrors or reflections after hearing the story. Some called it coincidence. Others said once you know her name, she knows yours. Over time, the story of the Larry Gomez encounter became a warning to travelers. Don't drive that road alone at night. Don't stop if you see someone standing by the trees. And if you ever see a woman with dark eyes and an unnaturally wide smile, don't look at her too long. Larry himself has rarely spoken publicly since then. In one of his few interviews, years later, he said something that still chills listeners. When asked if he ever thought she would come back, he paused for a long time before answering. "She never left," he said quietly. "She's been with me ever since that night." He claimed that sometimes, when he looks into the reflection of a window or a mirror, he catches a glimpse of her standing just behind him. Not moving, not speaking, just watching. Even skeptics have a hard time dismissing his story completely. There are too many details, too many witnesses, too much evidence left unexplained. Maybe what Larry encountered wasn't a ghost, but something older, something that wears a human face only to get closer to us. Whatever it was, it left a mark, not just on Larry, but on everyone who's heard his story. There's something deeply unsettling about the idea that something could appear so human and yet be anything but. It makes you wonder how many times you might have passed something on the street, in the dark, that looked human, but wasn't. So next time you're driving alone at night and you see someone standing by the road, think twice before you stop. Because maybe, just maybe, she's still out there, waiting for someone else to slow down and look her in the eyes. And when you do, you'll understand why Larry Gomez said, "She isn't human."